Good morning, guys. Today's episode is going to be called What Do We Mean When We Say Be Yourself? Now, the context of this phrase, at least in my experience, has always been through or in a social setting. And I think we can also include dating in that as well. But whether we're nervous for our interviews or we're nervous for a first date or there's something that we really desire, we can have it. There's a tendency for that phrase to come about, for someone to say, or a friend or family member to say, just be yourself. Whatever happens, be yourself. And I've been thinking about what that really means. And here I think psychoanalysis can help us out a little bit. And if we are to say that there's never not a time that we're not desiring something, that means there's always an object of desire. Now let's really play this out. If I'm going on a first date and I really want this person to like me, I start conforming myself, or I start shaping myself to whatever I think she might like more. And this is typically when someone will say, hey man, just be yourself. Because what I think it's actually saying is that because of the object of desire, you are becoming a product for that object of desire. Because you're choosing to shape yourself into something desirable. You're trying to become also an object of desire for your own object of desire. At least in the dating sense. Now, if we're to talk about addiction, what that would mean is that you become the product of the object of your desire. So in some sense, actually, you become less of a person. But I also don't think that doesn't also apply to dating. Because if you're conforming yourself to your object of desire, you're also becoming, or trying to become, a product of the object of desire. And that's why I think that when someone says, hey man, be yourself, they're saying that you're becoming a product of your own object of desire. And so you are making you're creating a distorted form of yourself. But here's where I really begin to question. Because if what they're saying is that your new object of desire is changing who you are, and we said previously that there's never not a time that we don't have an object of desire. So now, what does that really mean, being yourself? Because then what we would find is that being yourself is, there's never, we're always having an object of desire. So then what's the difference between having a new object of desire and having an older, a past object of desire? What would be then the difference? Because it seems to me that's exactly what it means when someone says to be yourself. You need to go back to the old object of desire. Because the new object of desire, whatever that one is, it's making become a product of your own object of desire. But then that assumes that we're not already a product of our own previous object of desire. And I kept thinking about this. And I thought about Adam Phillips, because Adam Phillips he's a child psychoanalyst, and the first thing that psychoanalysis teaches, especially when we start learning about Freud, is that, well, our first objects of desire are our parents. And so when we say be yourself, I don't really know what that means now, because that would imply from the very beginning I was never really myself, and that I was always a product of my object of desire, meaning my parents. And now that I'm growing up and getting older, my parents seem to become less and less my object of desire. But of course that transfers into maybe women that I want to date, or friends, or other male figures, and so on. They all of a sudden become new possible objects of desire. And the really strange part about this is that you can't make being yourself an object of desire. Because it would seem that it would negate itself. Because if we're saying that being yourself is predicated on having an object of desire, because there's never not a time that we don't have an object of desire, but then to be yourself, but then to make, what I'm trying to say is, if we're saying that if we make the objective of being yourself an object of desire, it doesn't make sense, because there's never not a time, because oh man, it's so hard to explain this. So maybe I'm making it too complicated, but the way I'm saying it is that whatever this being yourself is has only been known through our whatever current our object of desire was, or is, or going to be. And I think that's very strange, because now being yourself is really quite an enigma. Especially if my object desire is always changing. And I guess the real question is, how much unlearning do I need to do? How much of myself is really myself? And how much of myself is the product of my objects of desires? And what I'm trying to provoke here is a deep reflection about, am I an accumulation of all the products of previous objects of desires? And that every time I encounter a new object of desire, and someone from the outside sees that I am changing for it, and I'm conforming myself to appease for it, so I can attain it. And they say, well, you just need to be yourself. The only thing that I can infer from this is that you don't need to change for this object of desire. You shouldn't be wanting this object of desire. Because if you do want it, then you're willing to change for it. You're willing to do whatever you want. You're willing to do whatever you can to have it. But of course, I think that's always said in a very limited context. Because what I'm trying to provoke here is, how many times have we done that before? And so, when they say, be yourself, I want to even provoke it a deeper, be yourself. What would you be like without your object of desire? Now, I don't really know if that's possible. I don't think that is, because then that would make that question, the way I'm framing that question, it would make being yourself an object of desire. But the hard thing about that is that we wouldn't be able to pinpoint exactly if we were to make that the object of desire. Because there was never, not a time, that there wasn't an object of desire. Now, I don't have the answer for any of these questions, because all I'm really trying to provoke is that whatever being yourself is, it would seem to me is always predicated on your object of desire and the things that the object of desire denied you, which you would call your past, and the things that the object of desire could possibly provide you, which would be future tense. And then present would be, what is the object of desire providing for you now? And if we're always predicated on those objects of desires, then being yourself is always in relation to the object of desire. And then I guess what we would come to find is there is really no being yourself, it would seem, without this object of desire. But I guess maybe the better question that I think when someone says to be yourself is this the correct object of desire? Is this the object of desire that is going to give me the most satisfaction? And I think also we need to ask, what is it about me, or us, or you, that is so obsessed about satisfaction? And why is it that we can't be or stay frustrated? What is it about that that makes us less of ourselves, whatever ourselves are or is? Because it seems, for me at least, that there's always a self that I imagine. And it's always a self of pure satisfaction with that object of desire. But the real question is, do Is it because is it that self that wishes to be a product of that object of desire? Is it strange that the more I think about it, that when we talk about objects of desire, it means that depending on the object of desire, we really want to become a product of that object of desire. And it always seems to be the case that in that process, we're willing to annihilate ourselves for it, whatever means necessary. But then that also would mean that there is a deep sense of pleasure in our suffering for that object of desire. And I think that really says something about the human being, about why we're so willing to suffer for our objects of desire, even if there is no promise that we'll ever have them or possess them. We're absolutely willing to obliterate ourselves for them. And I always find that very interesting. That always intrigues me about at what lengths we are willing to destroy ourselves for the objects of desire. And I have to ask, is that really part of being ourselves? Or is there some kind of deep unlearning that needs to be done? Because all I've ever known is an object of desire. Now, I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't have objects of desire. And I want to make that clear. But I guess the real question, like I said before, is that what then is the proper object of desire? If there is never a time that we can't desire, what would that object be? What would make us more ourselves? I think that's a fair question to ask. And I think I will leave it there. Because I'm more interested about provoking questions rather than giving us answers. But of course, we need to look into what we haven't really paid attention to. And what I like about Adam Phillips is that it's always the things that we don't pay attention to that probably need our closest attention and the most of our attention. Alright, so I think that's enough. Alright, you guys take care.